Good morning. Welcome back. Good to see you all. Hello to those watching the video. Good to have you with us, sort of, in your way. Today, I'm hoping that we get a couple more folks trickling in because one of the verses we're looking at today was a request from Susie. So we'll see.
Well, listen, they're late. So maybe she'll eventually.
All right.
Oh, did Ted have a football game?
No, that's
Oh,
a
okay, so that one, they,
Okay.
It's a bye week.
How's everybody doing today?
Good, just as a quick aside.
Yeah.
Patrick and I went to New Highland Baptist Church, which is right next to us, to build their little pumpkin patch yesterday.
Okay.
And as you left out of the parking lot, there's a sign with a stop sign that says, "You're now entering the mission field."
Yeah.
And
I've seen that.
that was kind of cool.
That is.
speaking of Susie, you made her ears burning? No.
I was just saying, I hope you come because it's one of the verses that you said would be a good one.
Oh,
So I'm glad
okay.
you talked about today. Yeah, that's sort of a version of, it's not a Bible verse, but I've seen that one as people do.
It referenced Matthew something, but I don't know if. And I forget what.
Go make disciples of all the nations.
Maybe something like that.
28,
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, that was kind of neat.
Yeah, it is. Especially as you're leaving the field.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we're getting out of the prophets today. We're still doing the wall art and the Bible verse and digging into the context. But we're gonna get out of the prophets today. We're gonna have two different verses from the book of Joshua. One from the first chapter and one from the last chapter. We're gonna bookend this. And Joshua was not a prophet. Anybody know the book after Joshua?
Joshua.
That's right. Joshua was not a judge.
That was the book I read.
Oh, that's right.
From start to finish, that gave me the heebie-jeebies.
I think that's an appropriate reaction to the book of Judges. This is the heebie-jeebies. A lot of,
Yeah.
and it gets worse with each pass, and
It does.
the last one is the worst of all.
It
So
does, it's awful.
it is. But yeah, so he's not a prophet. He's not a judge. He's not a king. He's the successor to Moses. Moses is sometimes talked about as a prophet. But Joshua did not do the things that Moses did in terms of, talking to God and wearing the veil and bringing the commandments. He had communication with God, but not in the same way as Moses. So, what we're coming into, and I'm doing just a little bit of context here, is we're on the verge of the promised land here. At the beginning of the book of Joshua, Moses doesn't get to make it. Pretty much anybody from Egypt who got free doesn't get to make it into the promised land. They all messed up at some point or another in the wilderness. But here we are about to enter the promised land. And then the other end of the bookend is that they're in there, they've had some battles, and now they're kind of settling in. So that's our bookend today. But yeah, it's all about the promised land and moving in. So we're going to start in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9.
Oh, I have that underlined for some reason.
Okay.
I hereby command you to be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you forever, or wherever you go.
There you go. All right, you see that on the wall, or you see that verse underlined in your Bible? What does it bring out in you? What does it make you think of?
God's with you every day, no matter where you are. Just have faith in Him.
That's with you wherever you go. Anybody else?
Without knowing the context, I'm curious about why the part about be strong and courageous.
Yeah, courageous. It's interesting. This was the verse that Bishop Milton selected as sort of her theme verse at the beginning of her term. Joshua 1:9. Okay.
Seems to me that it has to, Joshua was a fighter, so it just sounds like somebody who's fighting.
Okay. And that, there's some substance to that. I don't think it's giving anything away that when God said, go back to the promised land, the land of the Canaanites, there were already people there. And there was a lot more battles about to come to fully receive this land that was promised to them. This land flowing with milk and honey, they had to evict the current residents. So yeah, there's some courage involved in that. After all, how many, 40 years wandering in the wilderness, and now we still have to do more, yeah.
And here we are, how many thousand years later, and they're still fighting.
It doesn't usually work when you say, hey, people in this land, we're gonna put somebody else there and deal with it.
Right.
Um,
The
yeah,
other thing I noticed in here is if you go back to verse 6, it says, be strong and courageous there.
yeah,
And then you go to verse 7, it says, be strong and very courageous.
okay. Well, why don't we-
So it seems like that's the theme of
That is.
There's gonna be some hard stuff going.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, let's go ahead and read that whole paragraph. Let's get that little bit wider context right away. Somebody wanna read the first 9 verses?
Sure.
Okay,
After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, my servant Moses is dead. Now proceed to cross the Jordan and all this people into the land that I'm giving to them, to the Israelites. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given to you, as I promised to Moses. From the wilderness and the Lebanon as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea, in the west shall be your territory. No one shall be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall put this people in possession of the land that I swore to their ancestors to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, being careful to act in accordance with all the law that my servant Moses commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, so that you may be successful wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to act in accordance with all that is written in it. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall be successful. I hereby command you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
thank you. So I got 2 questions. What is the source of the strength and courage?
God.
Yeah. I think it'd be easy to read this and think, I need to be strong. I need to be brave, right? But I feel like this is saying be strong and courageous because wherever you go, wherever the sole of your shoe touches, I'm giving this to you. That I'm giving you the law to live by that will make your life go well for you. I'm staying with you just like I stayed with Moses.
Yeah, and verse 8 says, go to the law and meditate on it day and night, so that you have that always in your soul.
Yeah. And my other question is, if that's the source of courage, like why do they, like Jeffrey was saying, what do you need to be courageous about? What do you think they need strength and courage for?
Well, now, having read that and understanding what's going on is, like you said, they're moving into somebody else's neighborhood and they're trying to take it over.
Yeah.
And, there may be repercussions coming at you in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I'd say that's the 2 things I see, that's one of them. The other one I would say is looking at where is it? Verse 7. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left. And I think you need strength and courage to stick to God's law because they have not already had a good track record of that in the wilderness. They already built the golden calf, and complained and whined, and you know, there's going to be women in this land that they take over. They know they're going to want to marry them, and then usually what happens is, well, let's worship their gods too. I mean, that's how they always warn them. Let's hedge our bets. Let's worship God in the temple or at the tabernacle because we don't have a temple yet. But then let's also build some worshiping poles for Baal or whoever else. It's going to take courage and strength to stick with God too. Okay, that's one vote. Any other thoughts, questions on Joshua 1:9?
How made up was the land at the time?
How what was the land?
How made up, this is milk and honey. I thought most of that land was just there and people were nomads into that land. Was there really a lot of towns built?
I think that there's definitely some agriculture because they'll talk about, I gave you, olive orchards that weren't yours. I gave you grape presses that weren't yours. I think there's already some development. I don't know if there's a lot of towns or population.
Wasn't Jericho there?
Yeah, that's the first city they have to knock over. But
There's a song.
I'm sure herds and flocks too. Like they weren't just going to,
It wasn't barren land.
wasn't barren. And I'm not as well familiar with the geography of the area as say like Jim and Nancy who've been there a few times. But if it's anything like California, I know there's mountains, right? So there's like the Negev Desert, there's some mountains, you have the coast and then you have that. And then there's other mountains as you go. But usually that stretch of land in between the mountains is a little bit of a fertile valley. You get some of the rain, some of the good grazing lands, pasture lands. But no, I don't fully know.
I'm just so curious.
Yeah,
I know when Israel came back to know there was a lot not there, except for Jerusalem, but they did a lot of agricultural stuff. But
yeah,
Well, the climate has changed, so it might have been different.
that is true. That is true. Yeah.
I mean, they weren't into the city really. They were farmers and herders.
They start to build towns and things, and they start to build, kind of worship centers, right? Like we're going to hear about Gilgal as we go along. Yeah, we do get Jerusalem. We'll get Bethel, Shechem. All these kind of places that have these places for priests and sacrifices and worship. But yeah, at this stage, if there's any developed towns, that's the ones that the Canaanites built.
okay.
Yeah. And I mean, the Canaanites, they weren't pushovers by any means. There's archaeologists that have found, Canaanite ruins and settlements and temples and writing and things like that. Okay, let's do the other side of the bookend, and then we'll fill in the middle a little bit. Go all the way to the last page of Joshua, chapter 24, and look at verse 15. See if you recognize just the second half of 15. Actually, no, go ahead and read the whole thing. We usually only hear the second half. That's what's on the wall art, but let's do the whole verse. Verse 15, chapter 24.
Now, if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord.
And we were given that as a gift in our first call. Very heavy stone or clay, but this heavy, it's about this big plaque that's like engraved with that verse. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, right? To hang up in our house. That was a very nice gift. So I know I've seen this one on the wall a bunch of times. Well, how does this one hit you? By itself or in relation to Joshua 1:9? Have you seen this on a wall before?
Yeah.
The last part of it, yeah, I don't think the whole verse, but the
No.
last part of it.
Yeah, the last part.
Mhm.
Do you see this as an internal house reminder? Hey guys, don't forget. Or is this a message to your visitors, or do you hang this outside your front door, next to your front door? Anybody who comes in knows what they're walking into. Like, where would this go? As for me and my house.
Sign being front yard.
In the front yard. Yeah,
Might be in the foyer,
in the floor.
or the entry hallway.
Well, they actually, I don't know if it's been, but they actually marked the doorway
Mm-hmm.
before you went in. So anybody who went by that door would know who that family worshiped.
Yeah, that was part of the Deuteronomy 6 thing of, the Lord your God is one, worship the Lord your God, uh, with all your heart, soul, strength, might, bind it on your hand, put it on your forehead, put it on your doorposts. Passover, they had to mark the doorposts, right? And this, Joshua is right after Deuteronomy, where they are, okay, guys, we're about to go into the promised land. Remember the commandments, all the commandments. Remember everything you went through. Don't forget who got you here. And then it passes the baton to Joshua. Okay.
I think because they don't have a good track record. Yeah, it's like he knows they're gonna go get involved with other gods somehow, some way, and he just wants them to have their ducks in a row.
Yep, make up your minds right now.
Yeah, do it.
Yep. Go to the bathroom right now, because I will not be turning this car around. Not gonna fall over.
Sounds like you said that to your kids before.
No, a little bit.
Once or twice.
Not too bad. Actually, not too.
Mhm.
All right.
Well, I mean, they were set up to have issues because like you said earlier, they're moving into a land that's occupied and, there's gonna be temptations from what those folks are doing that seem to be, these folks have been deprived for so long, everything these other folks had looked like,
Not good enough.
I'd like to have that.
Mm-hmm.
There's coveting your neighbor's stuff right off the bat.
Right, especially the mindset and cultures back then. If they did have really nice fields, maybe it's because they're worshiping these gods. We don't want to mess with that system, right? So yeah, Joshua lays out this ultimatum here. And guess what's on the next page, Becky? Judges, yeah. It really doesn't end up going well.
I tell you,
Um,
that was the first time ever I'd had a Sunday school lesson that involved judges. And then I started looking at it, and then I said, I'm gonna read this whole book.
yeah.
Maybe I can question a lot of things.
It does.
Why couldn't they get their act?
Right? Yeah, we're, what is
They
it?
haven't changed much.
Once you get thrown out to eat, you're pretty much.
Yeah.
That's right.
What's the thing from Ted Lasso? You have the memory of a goldfish. Like he says that to try to motivate the team after a loss. Like, hey, shake it off, forget about it, be a goldfish. But it doesn't work so well when you're supposed to remember something. But yeah, humans and goldfish share that
It's
quality.
to me, it's kind of interesting. He talks about the Lord and then he talks about gods.
Mhm.
So like, the Lord isn't God, the Lord is the Lord, and he's everything, everybody else is a God for some reason.
Well, you notice it's little g God.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's the difference.
Well, whenever
No,
you
but he
see,
didn't put a big G God, he called it Lord. And what confuses me, because I'm always thinking we're talking Lord, we're talking about Jesus Christ.
well, whenever you
So
see,
that was moving over into the New Testament.
whenever you see Lord in all caps like that in the Old Testament, so in Hebrew, there's no vowels, right? There's the letters, and then the vowels are like little points and dashes to tell you. So you could have the same three consonants, and then, whatever the vowels are could change the word completely. So like if you're, I don't know, in English, if you have the letters B and D, That could be band, that could be bond, that could be bind, that could be bend, right? It could be four different words with completely different meanings. So when they had the word for God, Yahweh, that word, that was considered too holy to put the vowels in that way. And so I don't remember, I get this mixed up, the Adonai, if you've ever heard that word. One of the other, they repointed the consonants to have different vowels so that you'd say it differently. Because you couldn't say the so holy name of God. And so when you see that all caps, Lord, that's that name for God that is so holy that we're going to pronounce it differently. So it's even above capital G God, it's the Lord. So when I type a sermon out, if I'm quoting something, I still try to type it out all caps because I just to remind myself that it's not just, oh, Lord and Master, generic. It's this the whole other concept. So whenever you see that all caps Lord in the Old Testament, it's that concept of God whose name is so holy we can't even utter it above everything. All right, let's do the wider context of this one, and then I'll pull out the art I found this week. I'm gonna have you jump around just a little. So let's do chapter 24, verses 1 through 2, and then jump to 13 to 18.
Joshua 24.
Still Joshua 24, yep. 1 and 2, and then 13 through 18.
Joshua or Judges?
Joshua.
Oh,
Then Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shittim, and some of the elders, the leaders, and the judges, and other officers of Israel. And they presented themselves before God. And Joshua said to all people, thus say the Lord, the God of Israel, long ago your ancestors, Terah and the son Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates and served other gods.
Let's do 13 through 18. Somebody may want to take that one.
I gave you a land on which you had not labored, and towns that you had not built, and you live in them. You eat the fruit of vineyards and olive yards that you did not plant. Now therefore revere the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your ancestors served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. Now if you are unwilling to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your ancestors served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. And then
One more.
19
through 28. Somebody want to do that one? I can take a turn. I always make everybody else read. But Joshua said to the people, you cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. If you forsake the Lord and serve foreign gods, then he will turn and do you harm and consume you after having done you good. And the people said to Joshua, no, we will serve the Lord. Then Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen the Lord to serve him. And they said, we are witnesses. He said, put away the foreign gods that are among you, and incline your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. The people said to Joshua, the Lord our God we will serve, and him we will obey. So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day, and made statutes and ordinances for them at Shechem. Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak in the sanctuary of the Lord. Joshua said to all the people, see, this stone shall be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words of the Lord that he spoke to us. Therefore it shall be a witness against you if you deal falsely with your God. So Joshua sent the people away to their inheritances. Okay.
So he created an idol right there.
No, didn't tell them to worship the rock. He said, this rock is sort of the symbol of the covenant that you all just signed on to. So it's almost more like the stamp on a contract.
Didn't they also, when they crossed the Jordan, build that mound of stones representing the 12
They did.
tribes?
Yeah. Yep. That song, oh, be thou, no. Shoot, what song is it? There's a line that says, something about my Ebenezer.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now. Very well loved, well known song. I can't remember it. Is it Be Thou My Vision?
I could just remember the first line of that would be that.
Yeah, whatever. But that's what it's talking about. And Ebenezer is that stack of stones. And so, yeah, there's this whole scene of crossing the Jordan. And it's supposed to call back images of parting of the Red Sea. And Joshua stands in the middle of it. And then the priests come and stand in the middle of it with the Ark of the Covenant. It's dry. The people walk across. It's not even muddy. And then the ark leaves, and then Joshua's the last to leave. And they say, hey, you 12, before I get out of the water or out of the river, get 12 stones and bring them out here. Yeah. So a lot of God trying to do concrete reminders of what God has done for them. Because boy, oh boy, does God see what's coming. Right? Try, keep them remembering.
It says the people are witnesses. A large stone is set up in the sanctuary of the Lord. Kings put such stones in sanctuaries of conquered countries, and they were used to make treaties official.
Okay. It is. I have stumbled onto the right analogy there. It's the wax seal at the bottom of the contract, the signet ring stamps, right? That say this is it. But they weren't supposed to make graven images, so here's a rock. Right?
They were large, so I guess they were easy to remove.
That's yeah, more permanence. All right, so I mixed up the art between these two verses. I'll kind of pass it along, but sheet number 1. Make sure we show these to our friends at home. Okay, pretty standard farmhouse chic. Top one is Joshua 1:9, the bottom one is 24:15. You know, that's what we've seen this a lot already, right? The dark frame, the kind of white barn plank canvas, and just different fonts for the verses. Okay. Next one, we get a little bit more adventurous. Okay. So we've got one in the kitchen, or maybe an entryway, the foyer. And then one that's a little bit more poster style, a little more inspirational. Now this one is weird to me, especially the top one. So the top one is, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But with this really pretty, like ink and color drawing that seems to be totally disconnected from the verse, even without the context. And then the bottom one's also pretty, but I mean, again, now we're just sticking nice artwork with the verses to me that don't seem to really go along. Here's another for the folks at home. There you go. Now this one's interesting to me because the top one, Joshua, these are both Joshua 1:9 on this sheet. The top one is really fun artwork. But a lot of these have mountains. I guess mountains are a symbol of strength, I guess, but nothing in these verses talk about mountains. But a lot of mountains. And then the bottom one is over a crib. Which is interesting to me.
One big rock.
Oh yeah. Now the next one, to me, we start to get a little bit off the track. Because the next one we start to work some crosses in there. Now, the Old Testament is important to Christians, it's part of our Bible, but this is an Old Testament verse, no Jesus yet. So this one has, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord with a cross. This one, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. The T of the last the is a cross. So this one makes me crinkle my brow a little bit.
I feel like maybe those folks then should have had these signs in their house.
Maybe.
Could've. Hobby Lobby, they could go buy-
Okay, this one takes my brow from crinkle to furrow, because now we have a cross with a big old lion. I can't tell you, a lot of the ones for Joshua 1:9 have lions. I guess because be strong and courageous, that means lion, I guess. And then the bottom one, we skip past the cross completely and we just have Jesus. So we have the verse from Joshua with a picture of Jesus next to it. Okay, I guess. The last one, my brow has gone from crinkle to furrow to just plain, I don't know anymore. And my eyebrows have disappeared into my hairline. These are both for kids. The top one is interesting to me because of the font, which might sound weird, but it's sort of like a science fiction font. So to me, it's starting to bleed, be strong and courageous into like adventure movies and like starship captains and things like that. And the bottom one, I kid you not, is a little kid with a lightsaber. So yes, that one. And that is a sticker that it's sold for a kid's room or nursery. It's a little Joshua Jedi. Makes no sense. So that's, I think, a question for me with these verses in general, but kind of shows up in this art as we go, is what do we mean by strength and courage? Do we mean the strength and courage of the world? Like if we're going to bring Christian crosses into the Old Testament verses, then we got to go with Jesus's definition of strength and courage, which was humility and self-sacrifice. Because these seem to be lifting up symbols of the strength and courage of the world, right? So mountains and lightsabers and science fiction and lions, right? Rawr, we're strong and courageous. That's kind of how these come across to me. Joshua was giving folks an ultimatum. Be strong and courageous to walk the ways of the Lord. Don't take credit for the victories, right? That was God's thing with Jericho. That's God's thing with a lot of the judges, a lot of the battles. I don't want you to be able to take credit for this victory. This needs to be so sensational and you need it to be at such a disadvantage that you could never take credit for it. God has to be the one that is given the victory and the praise. To me, these are missing that point.
Well, these are made for, it's a commercial
Oh yeah,
thing, so somebody just said, oh, let's look up some verses. Popular sayings and put them on a sign.
Yeah.
So really, a lot of these, I mean, they don't really mean anything to the people who are making them.
and that's
Because the context is
Yeah.
completely missing.
And that's troublesome for me, because on some level, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're seeing on a daily basis, if that's what you grew up with above your crib or in your playroom, then you start to put that in your head when you think of God, because that's the Bible verse. You know it's a Bible verse. So then that starts to get all mixed up to me.
I have, I think a couple coloring books,
Mhm.
one I bought and one grandkids gave me. And they all have pictures and then they have Bible verses that go with the pictures.
Sure.
And being the elementary teacher, I love to color them.
Yeah.
And I put them on my refrigerator I try to find the ones for the season or.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, and I don't know why I put them on my refrigerator. I guess it's because then I do see them every day.
And you literally had a hand in making that, so that's
Because I like to color.
I like to go across the time, do you?
To cross the lines, no, I stick in the lines.
But I always thought it was weird that Noah's Ark was such a popular children's Bible coloring book thing. Because it's really kind of a terrible story. Like the end is good, and there's animals, which is fun. but everything else in the world gets drowned and killed. Like there's a Lego Bible. Have you heard of the Brick Testament? Somebody goes through and uses Legos to make all the scenes in the Bible.
Oh, wow.
And the flood one, as the flood waters go down, they put little bones in the water. It's like the water goes down, it's like little skeletons showing up. Like it's
But Noah's Ark, when you're teaching the kids, you just talk about the
right,
sailing, you don't talk about.
you don't go
The
there.
animals.
You don't go. But yeah, I always thought that was, as I've gotten older, I thought it's kind of weird that we do that.
But I'm, when teaching Sunday school, some of the kids have questioned too, of every kind of animal, you know,
Yep.
that's pretty big possible.
Yeah.
I guess two of the animals that lived in that part of the world at that time. I don't.
I was always disturbed. They always had this the blue hardcover children's Bible would be in waiting rooms and stuff. And I would look through it and I remember the picture of Abraham with Isaac up on the altar getting ready to kill him. And
Is that, does it start with an E like Edelman's or something? Is that the one with all the paintings?
I just remember really being disturbed by that scene and why was it in a children's Bible that I was reading very carefully.
So that's it. Like, do you withhold stuff from the kids? And be like, well, we'll save that for later, or do you try to make it kid friendly? That's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other
That's a
topic.
But in a way, that's what this art did as we went from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
It what started with, I want this verse prominent in my house displayed. And then the farther you went, the less tethered to the actual verse it became in terms of how it was depicted. Yeah, Jesus is not the lion. Jesus is the lamb.
Yeah.
Jesus is not the mountaintop. Jesus is the one that John the Baptist says, you know, make way, bring the mountains down and the valleys up so there's a smooth path. That's Jesus who does that.
It's the man of sorrows.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. All right, let's read a couple more passages. Well, a little background first. Here's our deeper dive into Joshua. So the point of the book of Joshua, or one of the main points of the book of Joshua, is that it is a testimony to the grace and power of who? Not Joshua. God, the Lord, Yahweh, however you want to say it. The Lord is the sovereign Lord of all. That's who this book is about. Joshua's name might be on it, but Joshua's leadership requires divine intervention so that they can cross the Jordan and take control of the land of Canaan. And so the first part of Joshua, there's like a little intro and a little ending, but the first main section of Joshua is conquest. And it's not even complete conquest, right? There's still a bunch of Canaanites in the land, which causes trouble for generations to come. But it's stories of conquest. We start with Jericho and Rahab the prostitute, who's the only one who's spared. They go in and slaughter, which is a whole troubling side of the whole Joshua reclaiming the promised land piece. Is why is God requiring slaughter? Some folks even call it genocide. You know, it's savage. It's killing every single person, man, woman, child, all the animals even, right? It's really bloody. It's not quite Judges level, or maybe it is just
there.
on a different scale. But that's the first part of Joshua. The second part of Joshua is the settlement side. So you really go through each of the 12 sons or prince or their proxies, right? So Levi is one of the 12 sons of Jacob. Levi doesn't get a portion of land. Levi gets to become the Levites. So they get priestly settlements and, you know, cities and a portion of the yield of the land are sent to them. So that's part of the second part too, is how do we distribute the Levites? What's his name? Good Lord, Joseph. Joseph doesn't get his own stretch of land. Joseph's two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, get the allotments of land. One to take the Levites spot, Levi's spot, and wanted to take Joshua's spot, or Joseph's spot. My goodness, too many J's. But that's the second chunk, is that apportionment of land and who gets to go where. And then one other part in there is that they build sanctuary cities. Remember the book, Lest Innocent Blood Be Shed, that we read last year about the Huguenot pastors in France who sheltered the Jews despite the Nazi and the what was it called? The French collaborators, I can't think of the name. So those sanctuary cities, there's 3 on one side of the Jordan and 3 on the other side of the Jordan, that are built to have a place for people to go if they whether they're an Israelite or an alien in the land, if they killed somebody by accident and were facing retribution, they had a place to go until they could sort things out. So all of that stuff, sanctuary cities, the Levite settlements, and the 12 tribes are all set up in Joshua. It starts where we started in chapter 1, just outside of the promised land, east of the Jordan, and that's kind of up high overlooking northern Dead Sea and southern Jordan Valley. So that we're kind of, if you think Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea are connected by the Jordan River, so they're kind of at the southern Dead Sea looking up, or excuse me, northern Dead Sea looking up. That final chapter that we read from chapter 24, Joshua is presiding over a covenant ceremony. It's getting people to pledge their allegiance to Yahweh, who is living. You all are alive, and you owe this to God. So pledge yourselves to God alone and affirm that He is the only God. It's a weird book. It's a problematic book. We don't get a lot of readings from Joshua. If you ever wonder, what are the books that have the hardest things on them to do? Which are the ones that don't get read on Sunday mornings that much? Right? Joshua does not get read on Sunday mornings that much because there's just a lot of violence and a lot of bloodshed. But the main thrust, to come back to it, is the point of Joshua is the possession of the land is dependent and contingent on serving the Lord. You will only have the victories, you will only have the flowing milk and honey, you will only have success in your endeavors if you stick with the covenant, if you stay within the bounds. So, the Lord is sovereign. That's the point of Joshua. Thoughts, questions, comments on that? Okay, let's read a couple passages. I think that's what usually really fills in the gaps. So let's look at Joshua. Well, I'm not reading these, but chapter 2 is the spies and Rahab. Chapter 3, they cross the Jordan. Chapter 4, do you remember last week in Amos, they're like, if you don't think I'll destroy Jerusalem or destroy Samaria, go look at the ruins of Gilgal. Well, this is them setting up Gilgal. In chapter 4, they're going to have some worship there. So let's start with chapter 5, verse 2. 2 through 9.
At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives and circumcise the Israelites a second time. So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites of something.
Oh, yeah, at that place.
This is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the males of the people who came out of Egypt, all the warriors had died during the journey through the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt. Although all the people came out, who came out had been circumcised, yet all the people born on the journey through the wilderness after they had come out of Egypt had not been circumcised. For the Israelites traveled 40 years in the wilderness until all the nations, the warriors who came out of Egypt, perished, not having listened to the voice of the Lord. To them the Lord swore that he would not let them see the land that he had sworn to their ancestors to give us, a land flowing with milk and honey. So it was their children whom he raised up in their place that Joshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not been circumcised on the way. When the circumcising of all the nation was done, they remained in their place in the camp until they were healed. The Lord said to Joshua, today I have rolled away from you the disgrace of Egypt. And so that place is called Gilgal to this day.
There you go. Because Gilgal, if you have a footnote, means rolled. Related to the word rolled. Rolled away the disgrace. So, kind of like the big rock or the stack of rocks. You need reminders. You need to hear the story again of what your parents went through and how they messed up. You're the fresh start. Instead of flooding the earth, we're just getting to the next generation. And circumcision is a sign of the covenant, sign of your faithfulness. And God is the one who got you out of Egypt. But the Lord is the one who got you here. Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Somebody read 10 through 12. This is all the reestablishing.
Well, the Israelites were camped in Gilgal. They kept the Passover in the evening on the 14th day of the month in the plains of Jericho. On the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate the produce of the land, unleavened cakes, and parched grain. The manna ceased on that day. They ate the produce of the land, and the Israelites no longer had manna. They ate the crops of the land of Canaan that year.
How about that? And we always get the story of how the manna starts. We don't usually get the story of when it ends. And when does it end? After the Passover. And what was the Passover? God freeing them from slavery in Egypt, right? So you got circumcised, you celebrated Passover.
Then they went and took Jericho.
Yeah. And so, but all this stuff had to happen first before moving into the promised land. Reaffirm the covenant. Remember the Passover. No more manna, you don't need it anymore. You get to eat from the promised land. And so much symbolism, not just for us, but for these people, so they wouldn't forget. And then the next part, 13 through 15.
Once when Joshua was by Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing before him, with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you one of us or one of our adversaries?" He replied, "Neither, but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come." And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped, and he said to him, "What do you command your servant, my lord?" The commander of the army of the Lord said to Joshua, "Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you stand is holy." And Joshua did so.
Thank you. What does that make you think of? Who had a similar take your shoes off
When
experience?
Moses saw the
Yeah.
burning bush.
Yeah. So again, in the tradition of Moses, in the tradition of God, when you hear the phrase, the hosts of heaven, that's supposed to have a military connotation to it. It's not just hosts of horrors, like a large number. It's the hosts of heaven, the warriors, the angels, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, again, who's going to win Jericho for you? The Lord. And then, yeah, we move right into the sacking of Jericho. And then, like I said, lots of bloody battles. Still, if you look at the headings, the sin of Achan and its punishment, oops, somebody messed up and kept some of the idolatrous worship stuff, okay? But they keep moving through it. Chapter 8, Joshua renews the covenant again. The Gibeonites saved themselves by trickery. But, then 5 kings are defeated, right? So we move through this book. By the time you get through chapter 11, we get the summary of Joshua's conquests, and then we get a recap. Here's what Moses defeated in the wilderness. Here's what Joshua defeated. Look at chapter 12, verses 9 through 24.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then 13, the parts of Canaan still unconquered. So even though it was supposed to be this complete and utter takeover and victory, there were still some unconquered places. And then starting in verse 8 of chapter 13, the distribution of territories. And that goes on and on. And then we get the cities of refuge in chapter 20. Let's read a little bit of that. Somebody read chapter 20, verses 1 through 6, and then tack on verse 9.
Then the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, say to the Israelites, appoint the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you through Moses, so that anyone who kills a person without intent or by mistake may flee there. They shall be for you a refuge from the avenger of blood. The slayer shall flee to one of these cities, and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city, and explain the case to the elders in that city. Then the fugitive shall be taken into the city and given a place, and shall remain with them. And if the avenger of blood is in pursuit, they shall not give up the slayer, because the neighbor was killed by mistake, there having been no enmity between them before. The slayer shall remain in that city until there is a trial before the congregation, until the death of the one who is high priest at the time. Then the slayer may return home to the town in which the deed was done. And which other verse?
9.
Yeah. And 8.
I would tell you where to look, except
Oh, I found it.
it's in translation.
These are the cities designated for all the Israelites, and for the aliens residing among them, that anyone who killed a person without intent could flee there, so as not to die by the hand of the avenger of blood, until it is a trial before the congregation. Thank you.
So this is follow through of what was laid out in Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers. This is a little bit of refuge and peace in the middle of all the battles and bloodshed. And this is partly what the folks in Les Chambon based their refuge, they're taking in the Jews on, was, well, the Jews didn't need to kill anybody, but they're being scapegoats. We will take them in, we will be their city of refuge. Until a trial that could prove their innocence. I don't know, chapter 21, the first 3 verses there, the heads of the Levites come, and it's time to get our settlements, our pasture lands, our livestock. So verse 3, so by command of the Lord, the Israelites gave to the Levites the following towns and pasture lands out of their inheritance, list. And then jump to chapter 21, verse 41. The towns of the Levites within the holdings of the Israelites were in all 48 towns with their pasture lands. Each of these towns had pasture lands around it, so that it was with all these towns. 48 divided by 12 is 4, right? So even distribution. Thus the Lord gave to Israel all the land that he swore to their ancestors that he would give them, and having taken possession of it, they settled there. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had sworn to their ancestors. Not one of all their enemies had withstood them, for the Lord had given all their enemies into their hands. Not one of all the good promises that the Lord had made to the house of Israel had failed, all came to pass. Covenant, faithfulness, promise, law. Chapter 22. Somebody read verses, well, that's way too much, 10 through 31. We don't have time for that. They build another, let me summarize this for you. This one I had forgotten even. This is weird. So you know how a couple of the tribes end up getting placed east of the Jordan, right? So they're kind of on the outs already, just geographically. So the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, way out on the edge there, they built an altar by the Jordan, an altar of great size. And the rest of the Israelites hear that they build this altar. And verse 12 of chapter 22, when the people of Israel heard it, the whole assembly of the Israelites gathered at Shiloh to make war against them. We haven't even hung the curtains up yet, guys. Why? Because they thought they're already building idols. They're already worshiping idols. Oh my gosh, we better wipe them out before God does it to all of us. Well, they get there, they're about to have conflict. And then verse 21, the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half tribe of Manasseh said in answer to the heads of the family of Israel, the The Lord God of gods, the Lord God of gods, he knows. Let Israel itself know. If it was in rebellion or in breach of faith toward the Lord, do not spare us today for building an altar to turn away from following the Lord, or if we did so to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or offerings of well-being on it, may the Lord himself take vengeance. No, we did it from fear that in time to come, your children might say to our children, what have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a boundary between us and you Reubenites and Gadites. You have no portion in the Lord. So your children might make our children cease to worship the Lord. Therefore we said, let us now build an altar, not for burnt offering nor for sacrifice, but to be a witness between us and you, and between the generations after us, that we do perform the service of the Lord in his presence with our burnt offerings and sacrifices and offerings of well-being, so that your children may never say to our children in time to come, you have no portion, Lord. So they almost come to blows because they built an altar to remind themselves and their neighbors, hey, we're actually still all in this together, knowing that in time to come they might forget because of the river. We went to seminary in Dubuque, and we actually had a little talking to at the beginning of, hey, don't go to East Dubuque. Don't go over the river into Illinois to East Dubuque. That's where all the bars and like dance houses are. Like,
I remember I went to college up in that area,
Yeah.
and East Dubuque was well known at the university.
so there's a big difference between one side of the river and the other.
Exactly.
And then finally,
And I think that state was an eighteen state. Was Wisconsin
Is that
an
your
18
say,
state?
let's go.
Iowa was 21 state.
It's really,
yeah.
Yeah, it sounded,
especially young people.
Last one, verse or chapter 23, starting at verse 6. Joshua exhorts the people is the heading of this one. Therefore, be steadfast to observe and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, turning aside from it neither to the right, to the left, so that you may not be mixed with these nations left here among you, or make mention of the names of their gods, or swear by them, or serve them, or bow yourselves down to them. But hold fast to the Lord your God, as you have done to this day. For the Lord has driven out before you great and strong nations, and as for you, no one has been able to withstand you to this day. One of you puts to flight 1,000, since it is the Lord your God who fights for you, as he promised you. Be very careful, therefore, to love the Lord your God. For if you turn your back and join the survivors of these nations left here among you and intermarry with them, so that you marry their women and they yours, know assuredly that the Lord your God will not continue to drive out these nations before you, but they shall be a snare and a trap for you, a scourge on your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land that the Lord your God has given you. It's kind of like, hey, eat any of the fruit in the garden except that one, right? Enjoy the fruit of the land, but don't mix together and worship the gods of these people.
we're reading that book for Bible study, A Lineage of Praise.
Oh yeah, are you on Rahab?
I'm up to Bathsheba.
Okay.
But what's interesting to me is the first three ladies were not Israelites.
No, no.
They were people that came to their faith,
Tamar,
Tamar,
Rahab,
Rahab, and Ruth.
Ruth. Yeah.
And they, in many ways, were more devout than the people they were with.
Yep.
Which I thought was interesting, that they came to the faith on their own and made it very real. But they seriously were more devout than. It's a very interesting book. I mean,
Yeah.
they're novellas, but they're based. You can go to the
She did her research.
Bible and read,
Because they suddenly either looked up that it
yeah.
does pretty much follow real history.
And so sometimes I think people who come to the faith later in life, whatever that is, are a little more invested and devoted than folks who were like cradle Lutherans who grew up with it their whole lives, because you just kind of take it for granted, you know.
Right. They appreciate it.
Like today, we use the cross as a symbol.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily worship it, but it's
Right.
a symbol of who we are or what we believe.
Mhm.
But it's almost like back in that time, there was only one where the Ark of the Covenant was the only true temple or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But if anybody else built anything else, it was almost like that was wrong.
Yeah, because it kept getting them in trouble every time they built a calf or
Well, what I mean is,
Good
talking about,
altar.
even,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was thinking about with the stone that Joshua laid down earlier.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's not, yes, it's just a stone, but it's also a symbol of what.
Yeah.
We've been through and what we should be doing.
Yeah.
But if I take a miniature stone and put it in my house, does that make me wrong?
No, because it was several years ago that Catherine, Reverend Catherine did. I can't hear, it was a whole sermon or just anyway, and she had these stones and passed them out.
I might have been there for that, yeah.
I still have my stone.
Yeah.
And I have a stone that we decorated in my Sunday school class.
It depends on what your relationship is. You know, how,
But what I mean is just, it would just be a symbol to remind you or to somehow
Right.
reinforce what you're supposed to be doing.
like these.
What it seemed like to me back in those days, that would have been.
Yeah.
Considered an icon and wrong.
I mean, yeah, they weren't supposed to put up altars in their house. And when they used the altars of the other nations, that always got them in trouble. So, yeah, there's a fine line between starting off as a reminder or a symbol, but it could easily then become
So I
something else.
realize Israel isn't that big, but still,
Yeah,
you know, it would be, you know, Mary and Joseph, you know, you'd have to travel.
Mhm.
To go back to where
to the temple.
where the temple is.
Yeah.
If you want to worship, but yet, anyway, it just seems to me that they
Yeah.
make it very difficult for themselves to be.
Yeah.
True, because. Things that you could do to help, just like we go, you know, you go to church on Sunday, it helps refresh and reform and whatever. So you could make it through another week,
Yeah.
but. You know, if they tried that, then, you know, it would be heresy.
Well, you know, we're really good at making idols too. For instance, how many churches have had giant blow up fights, people leaving the congregation over the style of worship music, buying a new hymnal,
What do you mean it's wrong?
right? Or like changing the carpet, right? And then it can open up these things where you see like, oh, well, are we here to worship the organ? Are we here to worship the praise band? Are we here to worship the person who gave the money for that rug? Or are we here to worship God?
Yeah,
And it's really easy for us to get hooked onto the symbols and the methods and the other stuff. Real quick, just to wrap up though, because we were a little over. Back to the wall art. Okay, we've got some context now. On the one side of the bookend, we have be strong and courageous, do not be frightened or dismayed, the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And on the other end, the end of Joshua, you have, as for me and my house, we will choose the Lord. What do you think of these now? The extra layers of context?
I think as long as they're just a reminder, you know. It's just like a picture, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
No, I'm not
Well,
saying
like the
that.
one, like the one with the
But what does
cross,
it mean? Yeah.
like the one that the cross of Jesus, that would go with the, you know, as for me and my house, I'll worship the Lord. Well, that's just a modern symbol of what they were talking about in Joshua. I mean, you know, we're still worshiping the Lord, but here's a picture of the cross or of Jesus to help remind us of that.
Different character though. Not bad or one better than the other, but Joshua's very much about this ultimatum, stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
And Jesus and the cross, you could make that, you could bridge that gap, but it comes from a different place. But I think by the time we got to the last sheet with Joshua Jedi, or whatever you want to call it, we still have to learn the lessons of Joshua. Be careful with the symbols, be careful with the other cultures around you and how you interact with them. Don't mix it, right? It gets kind of off-putting when you think about don't intermingle your blood with the blood of these foreigners, right? That can lead down bad paths in history. But when you think of careful of the stories and the cultures that you're ascribing to.
But yet, you know, once you, after Jesus,
Mhm.
you know, he said to the disciples to go out and
Mhm.
basically recruit
Mhm.
non-believers.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we don't get that same message from Joshua.
No, Joshua is much more internally focused. Joshua's like HR, like don't step out of line. Jesus is more take the good news and spread it out.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a dichotomy there
Mhm.
of mission statements, so to speak.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Because as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord in the context of Jesus. Does that mean wash people's feet? Does that mean spread the good news? All of the above? Like, that's a good conversation to have. It's how to bridge the gap. And Jesus' name in Hebrew comes from Joshua. It's the same root. So there's that too. We didn't even get to talk about that. Anyway, thanks for the folks at home. Thanks everybody.